to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
This is one of those shows where I kind of have the feeling, Jody Lynn, I don't know about you, I get the feeling that this is one of those shows where it's going to have like an energy vibe to it that is like that high vibe feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally. Are you getting that too?
I'm glad we're all on the right energy wave.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, you can tell. I mean, everybody's different, right? Every guest who comes on is going to be different, which is part of the beauty of it because you get all kinds of great perspectives and so forth. But sometimes you can just tell. There's just like a feeling. And this is one of those times. So this is going to be good.
Man, expectations. All right, here we go.
All right, here we go. Yeah. So we're welcoming Kyleigh Weathers to the show today. And Kyleigh has a kind of a story that many people have had, but it's also a little bit different because she went one direction and then she came back the other direction. She started off what they often call straight. She went queer and then she said, I'm going to go back straight again. Like, what? What happened? So we're going to hear all about that. So first of all, Kyleigh, welcome to the program. How you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah.
To do it live. I've only done one live, I think, before. So this is exciting, like live podcast.
It's not like there's lots of people who listen in live. It's only usually one or two who drop in, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's fun. It's cool. Yeah. No, I'm really excited to be here with you guys. I love how you met. I think that's so cool. That really has been what my experience has been, just being in the podcast world for the last 6 months. Just met so many cool people. And like you said, the energy, like it's a vibe for sure. So
it is.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
And tell people what the name of your podcast is.
Well, so it's not out yet, but it is.
You haven't.
Yeah,
you can't even tell people what it is.
It's like dropping first episode this week. We're there with it. So Queerly Attached is also the name of the podcast. That's also the name of my coaching business. But honestly, Queerly Attached in general began as a podcast in my head. And I'm finally coming back around to it. Once I started guesting, I was like, oh yeah, this is my space. These are my folks. So I actually first went to Utah to sit with six women and one trans man who actually have a very similar story to mine, besides the back and forth. But I interviewed some other ex-Mormon queer folks, and that's kind of the story that we're going to be sharing, is a lot of the ex-Mormon perspective of what.
Yeah, well, that's the other interesting piece. I didn't touch on that part yet, bringing Mormonism in, because Mormon, that's a very conservative, very state religious view. Yeah. And now we're gonna tie this. Okay, this is gonna be fun.
And my father is he was in the military for 32 years. He was a colonel. So like we just had what you mentioned as a story of going back and forth, I say it's a story of self-abandonment. So that's what I'm out here talking on, is the road back from
tell us the story then. We want to hear the story.
Okay. All right. Well, I was raised Mormon. The way I say it is I was born a lesbian. I was raised a Mormon. Those two things don't really jive. And you mentioned Mormons. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have parents who are still part of that church. And we were very good Mormon kids. I have 3 brothers, and doing right and choosing right was like a big deal. Yeah. So when I first kissed a girl when I was 16, right, it was like, oh, I don't quite fit. I don't know how to deal with this, because this isn't fitting this picture that's been drawn up for me, right? Mm-hmm. I think one of the beautiful things about that religion, honestly, is the amount of purpose and direction it offers, right? It gives you a clear purpose, and that can bring a lot of hope to people. And so after getting caught at 16, my parents found out, and it was like just world flipping moment. They responded with love, but with the love of Mormon parents who were concerned about their daughter, who was now struggling with same-sex attraction, right? That's what they were calling it back then. Same-sex attraction, same gender attraction. And this was in 1997, 98. So like that conversation is just starting to come up about same-sex marriage in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, it was actually becoming quite controversial at that point.
Yeah, so it was like, how do we save you from this, right? Like, they actually took me out to Utah, not for shock therapy, but they did find a therapist who was like specialized in this.
Wow.
And that, it was one session, but it was so critical in this like these limiting beliefs that I'm going to end up sharing with you. one of the ones that was formed right then was I was like crying to this therapist, like, I'm so scared to make friends with girls and like it's gonna happen again. And she's like, yeah, it is gonna happen again. And we're gonna teach you how to put up boundaries so that doesn't. Right. And so it became a clear, like, okay, I got to hold to the rod, stick to this course, endure to the end. And this is my battle. So I did my damnedest to be a good Mormon, and I went to BYU, Idaho.
But I got to interrupt you for a second here, because what you just touched on has, first of all, has a lot of meat on it. But secondly, I understand to a certain degree that mindset, but I have to restate it. It's a mindset that says we have to put a boundary up about what you're feeling.
That's the harmful part. That's the harmful part.
Well, it's not just harmful, it's mind-bending.
It's very mind-bending. I say now that I feel like what happened was someone took my intuition and said, oh, this is called the right way of doing, feeling, being, and this is how you're going to use it. Self-abandonment was easy to choose because I didn't know who I was. I couldn't find a place that felt comfortable.
Yeah. At that age, we're all still trying to figure it out.
Right. And can you like imagine, like, there's a multiverse, right? Probably out there. And there's a Kyleigh who wasn't met with that at 16. And
right.
In fact, I'll share something. I found, I have this chest here, this like trunk. It's full of like all my Mormon stuff. And I joke that I don't touch it because I don't want to go back to the church again. But I did, because that's what happened, you guys. It was that damn trunk.
It was all the trunk's fault.
In a moment, like a dark night of the soul.
Something to blame. It makes it easier, right?
Yeah. So I went and found this letter that my mom had written. Each of us got a like Christmas letter. It was December 1999 dated. And she mentions my best friend and names this girl that I had ended up kissing later. Names her as this great addition to my life and that they love her. And 2 months later is when they found the note in my trash can that gave it all up. So I often think when I'm sharing this is imagine if my parents had a different reaction then. Instead, like, okay, well, first of all, we're going to have some new rules about bedrooms, right? Like we need to talk about that. But also, like, you loved that person. You knew her to be a good friend to me. Like, what if you just been stoked? Or what if you just been excited or anything other than you can't be this, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any feeling? I mean, if this starts to cut too close to the bone, let me know. But do you have any feeling, any sense about what it is that makes a parent decide to react that way? I mean, we can kind of blame the religion for it, but still, the parent has to make that decision.
Ouch! He said close to the bone. My gut said, "Yep." let me hold it, because I literally just came off of. I have a coach and a mentor. Just came off a session where that is a wound. And it's one of these attachment wounds that I'm out here coaching other people through. But that is a wound that I'm still working through layers of. Okay. And we just cracked another one today, and it was beautiful. Wow. You should have seen me an hour ago. But that's the type of like life I live now, where I actually sit with my emotions, right? Because it's a moment of self-discovery. Every time we skip that, we're just like opting out on getting to know ourselves. Like, it's goofy that we do it that way, but we're so scared because of all the inner judgment and external judgment we're perceiving, right? So how does a parent choose that? I don't know, because I am a mother. And a lot of my grief comes from seeing it from that perspective and just how is that the choice? And I can't imagine handling it that way. But with my parents, it was never done in like this, like, you are awful. It was like a loving, I feel like, honestly, for Mormon parents, they did a good job, because they were still extending love to me. Mm-hmm. And to them, the most loving thing would be to help me through this, right? Mm-hmm. To help me not go through this, like, turn it off, right? Mm-hmm. That would be the kind thing to do if this really was what they think it is, right? Which is not from God. And so I feel like they did show up loving, but they don't understand how, of course, that actually inflicted these deep rejection and abandonment wounds. They can't see that. And
well, I'm piling on here. So if I'm pushing too hard, just tell me. Okay?
No, yeah.
I do.
Yeah, this. I love. Hey, I like being afraid. This means I get to be courageous. Let's go.
Well, interesting you mentioned the word fear, because that's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that with your parents, who as loving as they were trying to be as loving as they could, but they were literally acting from a position of fear.
Yes.
Whoa, my cat likes to knock my microphone over occasionally, so forgive the.
Oh no! Did we lose Kyleigh?
No, that was.
I was like, the cat swiped me off backstage. The cat. That was the universe. Universe said, "Don't answer that question."
I don't think so.
I will answer. Yeah, no, you're right. That is it. That's exactly. It's the fear, and honestly, that's a lot of my own deconstruction, because I had to deconstruct my own religion as well. Like when it falls, it falls, and you have to look at these pieces and figure out which of these are worth picking up. So I had to deconstruct all of that, and it sounds like this is going to be a deep conversation. So I think, like, can we swear on this? Like, forget the story. Like, it feels more like
there's really good news here, Kyleigh. The FCC has nothing rules to say about this school.
Yeah.
The school. Yeah, it is
right,
a school.
So basically, like, fuck the details of the story. The point is, because I was so messed up with that belief, I kept leaving, coming out of the closet, and then back to church. Coming out of the closet, back to church. That was the pattern. Every time that was the pattern. And so the main leaving the church was when I actually married a woman in 2008. And that was the main, like, I'm finally doing it. Fuck the church, and I'm out, and I'm gay. We had a big ass wedding. Like, we wanted it. Wow. We were straight as fuck about it. We sent out invitations. We did pictures. Right. We wanted to celebrate what we were doing. And at that time, Prop 8 was going on in California.
Oh, geez.
Right.
Perfect timing.
We got tied up in that. So we got married during that time, and then you couldn't be married after that time, which also meant you couldn't get divorced. Like, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, crazy.
So she actually ended up, after about 3 years of marriage, returning to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
And so our marriage was over. And that was my, like, dark night of the soul. Oh my God, it happened again. Because unfortunately, these women that I kept falling for were also Mormons. And so it's like we would date, and then the guilt and the shame, and how many times did that make it mean I'm rejected, I'm abandoned, God always wins. Like, it's always this choice between the church and love. Like, that's what the story became. And so here it was, my wife, like the ultimate, like, I'm like, fuck, right? And admittedly, we were not even in like a great relationship. It should have ended, but the way that it ended,
it was pain.
I felt so alone. And when we had gotten married, I'd lost my community. Parents tried, they did what they could. My mom, like, came to the wedding but like cried in the corner. Like, it was tough for them, right? Mm-hmm. So when I went out to look at that trunk and came across something, it felt like that intuition. At that time, I still was calling that the Holy Ghost, like they had taught me, and I felt that thing. I felt it, and I was like, oh, like I took it as like that, and it was like serendipitous, man. I almost think I was supposed to go back to that thing, to be honest.
Really,
it was literally, I was like having this difficult night, and I was like crying, and I hadn't prayed in years, and like I've never shared. I started praying, and it was like, it just got so heavy. And all I was saying was like, look, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say at this point, but all I need right now is comfort and strength. Those were the two words I kept saying. I need comfort and strength. And then I go out to that thing, open my Book of Mormon. See, and any Mormons listening are going to be like, oh my God, that was a sign. Okay. But out falls this little paper that I had written on during my mission. Because yes, I even served a mission for the church and got sent home early. Because why, guys? Because me and my companion fell in love, right? Like, come on, why the fuck else? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so patterned. And I'm laughing now, but you guys, this shit was so dark. There was so much grief to it. It was so much grief. And so, like, even now, I'm like, my body's like, remembering it was a lot. And so that moment, this paper falls out, and it's my handwriting, and it says, anytime I'm feeling scared, I want to read this chapter because it gives me comfort and strength. My handwriting.
Whoa.
Now, I've done my own logic to figure things out on that, and it's whatever. I believe in universe. I believe in energy. Mm-hmm. But that sent me back to church. That was on a Wednesday night. By Sunday, my gay ass was in a skirt again for the first time in years, and at the church meeting the bishop. Hi, my name's Kyleigh Griffith. My name is Kyleigh Griffith, and I think you know who I am because he'd been obviously meeting with my ex-wife. And I was very angry to be there. And he talked about that. He and I are still actually friends. I got very lucky with the guy that I went back into the church with. Very lucky. He was very understanding of all of it. And I was in Podunk, Georgia, like very small town, very closeted. And so that guy was like, I remember how angry you were. You did not want to be here. But so I really felt compelled. It felt like this prodigal son return, like Paul, Saul, kind of like. And that's what it became. That was a fire. I remember the fire. I was so happy because what did I get back? Community, family. Like, oh my God, it was everything. And I still got to be best friend with my ex. Like, that's a lesbian's dream. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yes, let's keep doing this. And that led me right into what young adults do in the Mormon church. And that is to look for an eternal companion to marry in the temple for all time and eternity. And I met my son's dad. And so we both had this history of not being in the church, having these periods of being inactive is what they would call it. So he knew my story from the beginning. You guys can tell I have always just been this, like, this is who I am and this is what you're going to get. So he knew all of my past. It wasn't like it was any trick or anything. Sure. When I try and explain that part of like, how did we make it work? I just know that it did. And I felt really safe with him. And he understood the pain I was coming with. Because remember, I had also just had this whole experience with this other woman, right? Like, it was like all of it was too fast, right? There was no period of singlehood. Like, I'm just flying through these relationships, like just flying. And so he was just he's a good man. And so when we left the church together in 2018, I had read enough that I was done. And they had continued to harm the queer community enough that I couldn't continue to be part of it. And when I talked with him about it, he said, let me, look up my own things on it. And he came back within the week and was like, yeah, we're done. That's okay. And he says, these are his words, that at that time he felt like it was like someone had taken a cloak off me when we left the church. He said, and to be real, our relationship deepened. Everything was better in our marriage after leaving the church. Really? And also now I get to watch queer content. Oh, okay. I can go watch all the gay shit. And so, we're deconstructing religion. We're deconstructing what means what. We're deconstructing monogamy. Like, all that is happening during this time. And then, hi, COVID, right?
That's what you need.
But thank God for COVID, because that was when I found out about attachment styles. And that put a halt to all the shit except for the final boss level of shit. When he and I decided not to be he and I anymore, I was U-hauling. I joke that my husband drove my U-Haul to Kansas because guess who I had ended up with after he and I opened up our marriage? My first girlfriend at 16 years old. There we were, this beautiful chance, this opportunity, right? Like, it's the story that should have been the what if, right? And I U-hauled for it. And I am currently single because I do believe I needed to break free of what was a trauma bond for me. I was trauma bonded. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot. That does not mean deeply sharing stuff between people. Like, we were trauma bonded. I don't know that was her case, but it was for me. And I began doing my own attachment wound healing. And I ended up getting certified as a coach for it because I just saw the direct impact in my life. Like, there just is everything I just told you feels like other lifetimes. And this Kyleigh, of course, can't understand like exactly how she made those choices. But what I do know now is how to validate that she did instead of judge the fuck out of her. Right. That's where the shame cycle comes in. We just start messing ourselves over. We victimize ourselves with the same story. And I didn't even tell you guys about how I woke up paralyzed during, like, I didn't even like get to the crazy part.
That's not the crazy part.
That's not it. Like,
but wait, there's more.
No, so that's how I got through all of that. Then here I am, post-pregnancy. I have a 6-month-old. I'm asleep. He's taking a nap. I'm taking a nap. It's after church. 2014, April. I wake up screaming. Worst pain I've ever felt in my life.
Wow.
We are 1 year into the marriage. No, 1.5, or whatever. We got married and then had a kid quick, right? So we're barely into this thing. And I'm paralyzed. I have woken up paralyzed and in the worst pain I've ever had in my life. I'm not going to go through that whole story. But what I'm going to share with you is I needed that piece too, because after that injury, I lost so much. I lost my job, got put on disability. Like I lost so much. I lost this hope of this like awesome mom that I was going to be. I'm so active. I'm an athlete. I lost sport. I lost pickleball. I lost everything in that moment. And then I compounded my loss year after year. I just kept adding to the loss because of what I kept thinking about the loss. Sure. And I just continued to lose until finally the 9th year. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to feel like this at the 10-year mark. I can't do it. I won't. So April 2024 was my 10-year mark. And it was night and day from making that decision in April 2023. It was such a different experience, and it was so much lighter, and like the anger and the victimhood around it is gone. And I've been through so many surgeries, and I have so many more, and I'm not paralyzed any longer. I can walk, and I'm walking without a cane and a walker, all those things that I had to use at the beginning. So it's a miraculous story, but I was already fractured from spirit, my own, and then I became fractured from my body. So for that 9 years, I just hated myself. My body, it had betrayed me. It had, all these words that just, I used to call this my bad leg. Now I call it my healing leg and my healing back, not my bad back. And the way I talk about it is different. And the guys, my pain has changed. And that sounds crazy. And I would have knocked me out a year ago if I'd said that to myself. But the way I think about my pain has changed my pain. And I'm not saying I'm pain free. I'm still a chronic pain patient. But my life has changed just because the way I think has changed. And that's fucking creator shit. Like that's creator shit. And that's where I'm thriving. Like just, so after all those pieces, Kyleigh Attached was naturally born, because how do you not share that medicine? How do you not? Like, I can't shut up about it. And I just, it's life-changing shit. And I'm watching these clients that I'm working with, I'm watching their lives literally change. And it's these small things. We're all calling it small, but you think about how much opportunity you get with every emotion you receive, with every choice you get to make. Oh my gosh, it's so powerful.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I know. I just I'm sorry.
Did I talk about this being high energy or something?
Yeah, I think
you did call it. You guys are like real. I'll sit back. Y'all take the mic. Let me sit back.
Holy crap. Wow.
Yeah.
It's one of those rare cases. Jody Lynn knows me well enough to know that normally I don't have any trouble coming up with the next question, carrying the conversation. This is one of those moments where I have to kind of like stop and say, whoa, what just happened here?
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah. No, I mean, it is. It is impactful because you can hear this is coming. This is born from my queer pain. And what I've done is I've understood now what queer joy is. And can I plug the summit here? Because we're right here.
Do it, yeah.
Like I have done this deep dive on like, what is queer joy? Like we talk about it. And I don't think it's just the other side of queer pain. What I've determined is queer attachment trauma, which is different from the attachment trauma y'all go through. You guys have your own. All of these things that I'm sharing works for everyone. But queer attachment trauma is more of the shit I'm talking about. I had parents, religion, society telling me that my very essence is wrong, right? How do you not carry that into relationship? How do you not make that mean something about you and how you should behave to not get rejected and abandoned? We people please, we ghost, we stonewall, all that shit. It's just insecure attachment strategies coming up to do their job, which is to protect us from the thing we're scared of, which is rejection and abandonment. So queer joy for me, I actually even went to TikTok and went live and just asked folks, what do you call it? And all in all, pretty much same conclusion. I'm saying now queer joy is just existing. It's belonging. It's acceptance. It's existing. It's existence. And that's a fucking right. Like that is our right to exist. And queer attachment trauma is the thief of our queer joy. And it's why I don't think heteronormative society can really understand queer pain or like pride or the things. I don't think you can understand what it's like to have your existence fucking questioned and politicized. Like you can't get that. And so I'm getting emotional about it. But what happened is it tapped into this like existential crisis for me. I got angry. I'm getting angry now.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I understand that.
Because that's a pursuit.
How can I fully get it? Because you're right. I can't fully. I mean, I can't
understand
it. I can intellectualize it. I can understand the concept. But I can't connect to anything in my life that's like that.
No. And we just carry it. And so I have, listen, we talk a lot about coming out, but we don't talk enough about being in. And that's where this fucking trauma happened. And when we pack it up, like, it's just, now we're through the closet and it's fine. It's going to all look great and gravy, but it doesn't. A lot of women are coming out late and they're calling these partners their catalyst because it basically shot them out the closet because they're 40 and didn't know that they felt anything for women. Right. So a lot of those relationships are being very roller coaster, filled with more abandonment and rejection shit. Right. So it's honestly, Queerly Attached is for queer people because we deserve healthy and functioning and healthy fucking relationships. And this queer attachment trauma is fucking the community, and we don't see it and we don't talk about it enough because it's deep shit and it's uncomfortable to talk about. It does not feel good to sit in that space, but that's why I'm like, I got you, dog. Like, I will help you through this. I swear, if we face this thing, the joy on the other side of self-acceptance, oh my gosh, I am out here just existing and it feels amazing. That does not mean I don't have stress. I'm a small business owner. I have fucking stress. I have way too many hats, you know, but life doesn't life me like it used to, right? You know, when like life is really like lifing you, like now I feel so confident and sure of how I fit in this world and what my worth and value is, that it doesn't matter what external, it just doesn't. Now I'm still breaking through layers. There's still moments I'm showing up insecure, but I say that I practice secure every day. And you mentioned my parents. I am very avoidant right now with my parents. In my relationships, I was very anxious. This avoidance is coming from this deep pain that we're talking about. I'm digging through it and having to work through it. And I'm not ready to say the thing yet. And so instead of saying, hey, I'm actually not ready to say the thing, I'm just not saying the thing, right? That's not very secure. So there are still these areas, and that's my point. It's a practice we get to do every day. So Queer Joy Summit is 20 plus queer speakers all talking about queer joy, how to obtain it, how to get it, how to fucking own it. And I get to talk about attachment. Some people are talking about like queer movies. Some people are talking about how to get through the holidays during this shit. It's a beautiful free resource. So I would just encourage everyone to register, just even to support it. This is the first year they're doing it, and it's good shit.
And we'll get a link into the show notes as well. But tell people, verbally, how do they find it?
Yeah, so you can go to queerjoysummit.com. There's a website there for it, and also if they click through the link that you're going to provide, that's supporting my work. So that would be dope to do it that way as well. But Queer Joy Summit, you can Google it. We're out here. Everybody did a like pre-recorded presentation, so you're going to get 20 queer perspectives on queer joy. So yeah, I'm really stoked about it.
My VA is a Filipino Catholic, and she's really intrigued. She was the main reason why she wanted you to be on the show. She wanted to find out what your story was.
Oh, she's just like, that sounds wild.
Yeah.
I used to say it's a story of self-abandonment, like I said, but it wasn't till literally 2 weeks ago, after listening to another interview that had come out with me on it, I said out loud, I was like, oh, it's a story of resilience. Like, I hadn't even seen it that way. I just hadn't. But hearing it for some reason on that episode, I was like, oh, shit. Like, it is a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's definitely resilience.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to start adding up all the different ways that
I just didn't.
That just, that becomes a ridiculous.
I have never been afraid to pivot. I've never been afraid to pivot. I will say that. I think that's part of the resilience, is like knowing like there's really, you can always make another choice. Like you can always make another choice. Look at these choices I made that led me through entirely different lifetimes. Like, I'm 41, right? Like, that's crazy.
Well, that's part of what's so amazing, because literally, I mean, the whole circuitous route you described, going back to your sweetheart from when you were a kid, that the fact that your journey went that way with no direct intention on your part. That first of all, that validates so many different theories anyway.
I know, my heart and my, like, yes, all those things. Yes, it was all this wonderful kind of full circle, and honestly, coming out with Queerly Attached on the other end of it is, I couldn't have dreamed this. So it's been pretty spectacular, because I now believe so much in this idea of energy and frequency that I have just been calling the most. I mean, like, even these types of interviews, I'm like out here manifesting this stuff. So I am very like, I'm about it.
Oh, yeah. Now, how does this impact? Well, like you can answer this in one sentence, but how does this impact your relationship with your son?
Oh, I love that question. Oh, I'm so excited. I love talking about parenting and attachment because it is so important, right? Like now we see, oh my God, this is like an actual big responsibility. Like we're literally like crafting these people's lives, these little human beings that we like won't allow to be human, right? Like we just expect the craziest stuff out of these kids, like for them to like manage all their emotions while we're literally losing ours on them, right? Like it's crazy. So that type of parenting was never going to be an option for me because I've come from a space of mental health even before all the attachment stuff. I was a recreation therapist. I was like nonviolent communication was my jam, and so I was always a very intentional parent. So I would say for sure, like gentle parenting, like it has led to just the most beautiful relationship with him because he was 6 months old. Like it has also created the most compassionate kid, right? He is just so himself with me, and that's all I really want. I just want him to feel like he can be. That's what I try and offer him because I don't feel like that's what I got, right? And I know now joy is being able to exist. So I'm not here trying to tell you how you should feel or anything. What I'm helping him do is talk about his feelings. We have I think all the time, man, if I just put a camera up, we could get this shit on TikTok, but I'm like, they're almost these sacred conversations I have with him. I almost like wouldn't want to record it because they are he's emotionally like intelligent and it's beautiful. And his dad lives 2 buildings over from us. We live in the same apartment complex. So he gets to run between us. And his dad and I have been just as intentional about the uncoupling, boundaries, like all those things. It's just been, I say like I'm researching it all because I'm living my life this way now. And it's like, I've been saying I'm securely single. I've been securely single for almost a year now. Like we're just coming up on that year. And, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm kind of ready to research dating now. And it's not going to be crazy dating. Like, we're going to actually go on one date and then go fucking slow. Because it's different now. I'm not looking for a partner. I'm not looking for anyone. I'm just literally walking my path. And sure, I hope like somebody like, you know, I don't want them crossing. Don't get on my path at all. Like you have yours and let's see if we walk the same.
Yeah.
Like you keep your shit the way it is. We don't need to get enmeshed and be codependent and limerence and all the things. Like let's just walk for us. And then if we walk the same way, let's do it, man. That's awesome. But there's no like rules on it like that. I find it to be just self-abandoning when we run that fast to it. I just think it is. We have to really be sure of what our needs are so that we can be sure of what our boundaries are.
Well, my way of expressing what I think you've been trying very clearly and well to say is
take me 30 minutes.
Hey, it doesn't matter how long it takes.
I will never say I'm concise. I'm not concise. All right, go ahead.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. What matters is you were expressing what you needed to express the way it was true for you, and that's the best part about it. Just when I think about it from the way I'm looking at it, from the way I understand it, I've often wondered how ultra-conservative communities were going to be able to navigate. I knew that it was going to happen somehow, but how are they going to navigate out of what they're in? Okay, well, somebody decided to jump in.
I was worried my dog was going to do that. So I'm glad it wasn't mine first.
But no, I've often wondered how communities will end up making the shift out of the traps they've laid for themselves, because they've really laid it for themselves. I mean, we'll tend to think about it in terms of how they lay it for people who are in their communities and so forth, but they really lay it for themselves.
Yes.
You have, just through your story, not through any plan or deliberate intention, you've laid out for me a route that I never even thought about.
Wow, that feels really impactful for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, and quite honestly, it's actually encouraging. Now, I don't mean to say that you going through all that pain was encouraging. I don't mean to imply that at all.
No,
But the fact that this is where your actual mental health came in. And by your mental health, I mean your deep-seated soul health. Your health of your soul came through and guided you through an impossible maze to a resolution that by right should not have been there.
No.
And it found a way anyway.
Yeah.
When I hear that, that's the way I hear the story. And when I hear the story that way, now it becomes possible in my mind that any kind of community, I don't care how closed off they are, how well-rounded they feel they are, how entrenched they are, how loving they feel they are. I don't care what it is. Any community that has locked themselves into a bad space, they can climb out now.
That's right. That's it. That's I love that. The Untethered Soul is Michael Singer. Have you heard of the Untethered? That book is what finally broke me free of it.
Did it really?
Understanding. I put it down after reading 3 pages and I started practicing it.
Wow.
3 months later, I finished it and it was like a testimonial. Like everything you just said, this resolution, clearly attached, and me doing like that was never how literally it was this breaking free of the emotion and thought trap. Because really what happens is like we take emotion, we take thought, we put it together, and now it's thinking. And now we're suffering because the thinking has taken over, right? Like we have to deal with the emotions first. We can't just keep jumping them in with the thoughts. That's the thing. That was the key that unlocked this for me, was observing these voices instead of believing them.
What a great distinction too. And I love that he included that in his book, but that bringing that out is key as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's
the difference between judging and appreciating.
Well, look what it took. What did it take? It took me loosening my grip, stop trying to control shit I can't control, only control the things that I can control. And now I actually feel more powerful. Like that's got to say something. Like, right? I'm more powerful and creating how I want my days to go. Like, again, that doesn't mean that I don't have things happen. But when they happen, I process them. And data shows us, like research, emotions only really need about 30 to 90 seconds to release. But when we add the thought, now it's thinking, and now we're going to be crying all night, right? And the emotion still hasn't got to be felt because now it's been trapped with thoughts. So I like to say emotion is just like this old friend who's coming by with a message. And how can you process anything from these experiences if you haven't even gotten the message yet, right? You said that mental health piece, this is how I got there. Right? We always, whenever you're triggered, you're going to find when you get down to the roots, it's a limiting belief. It's a core wound. It's something around that. And now it's compacted because we've had all these years of emotions of not dealing with it. So it really is like a sitting with yourself to feel these things. This is your body talking to you. Like, why are you skipping out on that? What a cool thing that we can do. Like, it's so cool because it really comes down to what we make it mean. We get to decide what any of it means. And so if we're going to be out here placing meaning on shit, like why not pick the meaning that actually like aligns with your goals and desires and needs? Like that's an easy choice. And that actually to me has slowed the process down. Wow. I feel more intentional. I feel more mindful, more present. My head is so quiet. No more spiraling judgments and just anxiety. All of it is so quiet. So quiet. I love it. It's peace.
Normally when we do these interviews like this, I always kind of have it sort of mentally mapped out, like between the 10-minute mark and the 30-minute mark, somewhere in there, I'm going to start bringing my co-host in because Jody Lynn has so much to contribute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, that's right. No. I say that as a way of explaining, like, my goodness, we're at the 38-minute mark. I hadn't even thought of bringing Jody Lynn at this time. I was so entrenched in your story, I completely forgot about it. So I'm going to shut up for a while. Jody Lynn's going to come in and she's going to take over.
Oh, I'm getting excited to talk to Jody Lynn.
It's all good. I've just been sitting here with a lot of different like thoughts and feelings. The first one that really came up, Kyleigh, is just the way that you talk about this story of your life, everything that has happened to you. And it does feel like it was another lifetime. Like when you talk about it, it feels like another lifetime. But then to hear that like 2018 it like was when major stuff happened, like it was only like a year ago. You referenced 2023. Like I am beyond baffled how you have it all like just calm, and you seem so like you just seem to know. You have this knowing and you're like, okay, good, cool, let's go. I'm just going in this direction. And it doesn't feel like there's any anger or animosity when you talk about your parents and like even the church and like the Bible and like all of these things. I don't know if that's what it's called in Mormon religion.
The Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon. Thank you.
Great musical.
But like all of these things, I'm kind of like just taken aback by how composed you are, and yet these things happened fairly recently. And that was the first thing that I'm taking away from our conversation today. Also, something, and this is probably like a lot of people in the world that are straight. I have thought about all of the things that we go through as humans and how we don't feel like we fit in, and we have a lot of trauma from our childhood and all these things. No one taught us how to feel our emotions or how to deal with any of this stuff that's coming up. And then, my thought process stopped there. I've never been in the shoes of someone who was, in your position or going through that. But the way that you described it, it was also mind-blowing for me, because I already think people are in trouble because we don't know how to deal with any of this stuff. And then you added like a dump truck load more of really deep things, not fitting in society, being shunned, like all of these things that I, honestly never thought about. That's crazy. And I think it's just really amazing that you're focusing on your community, because I have noticed that there is a lot of anger inside of that community that I have seen, probably because I'm on the outside and I don't know anything, but I've noticed some of those things. And obviously there's going to be left and right and all different kinds of sides to all of these scenarios. But I think it's just really beautiful that you're helping your community, and also at the same time it's rippling out, and that message will continue to ripple out to people outside of the community to have more compassion and understanding for what we, as you said, we don't know. And I always come back to something my dad has said to me. He never says, I know how you feel. And when I was a kid, he said, I'm never going to say that to you because I'm not you. And you're going to process things so differently than I will. So I can't know because I can never be in your shoes. And here is like just a perfect example of how we can never know. I can never know because I'm not in your shoes, but I can have such great compassion for everything that you're going through. So I think this conversation, I was awestruck anyway, Walt. I had nothing to say except for that.
Thanks for sharing that. I honestly, I haven't ever heard it said back to me like that. So I was getting a little emotional. And I appreciate you seeing that big picture, because you're right. It's all very recent. It's it is. I wrote down what you said about the anger in the community, and what I hope you see now is it's the anger secondary, right? It's hurt and it's grief.
Totally.
It's literal like wounds. And because we haven't been taught how to express, like you said, like it makes sense that it comes through as anger, because that's about the only thing that we know for sure how to label, right? I have a literal like emotions wheel here because
love it.
Right? Like even my pillow is an emotions wheel, because my friends and my clients who lean pretty avoidant have a hard time even naming the things, right? Because they have just been taught that it's better to repress it. It's better not to talk about it. So
and you layer in the fact that with everything that you were talking about of just like coming out of the closet and feeling like you don't belong, and people probably saying those things, I think sometimes people can be really insensitive, but having all of that, I think it makes sense that anger would come up, because for you to sit in front of somebody else and explain, I'm hurt, I'm sad, I don't feel like I fit in, to even like label those feelings, that takes a lot of vulnerability for somebody that you think is looking at you and will never understand or get you. So that's a big hill to climb.
It is. I think it actually, the way you phrase that kind of speaks to what is a difficult relationship with my parents, because I know what they believe. Obviously, I know the grief they have that their daughter has left that religion. Like to them, they have like lost me for eternity, right? Like I understand. It's so interesting being the child and the parent. It's so interesting to see it from both perspectives. And you mentioned I don't have any hate about it to my parents. I really like, it's more like, what would be amazing if parents like could offer their children, no matter what age they are, is to sit down and just say, can you tell me what it was like growing up? What was your experience in our household? Right. And just really asking them. Because the truth is, all the times that, like, I'll give an example just of my parents used to tell me to sit down, Kyleigh, like it's kind of a family joke. But I was making that mean be quiet and don't speak up. And right, wow. I'm 3-4 years old. That's what I mean by making it mean. That's the power. Because what we make it mean gets that fucking belief going. So it's so kind for parents just to sit down and say, tell me about it. Instead of, we did the best we could. And, like all that stuff is just defense, man. I know that this is going to bring up feelings for you, but you're my parent. I would love for you to hold space for mine.
Yeah. Wow. I'd love to have that conversation going on in family after family. I don't care what the situation is.
Wouldn't that be amazing if we could, like, it's so, after I read that book, guys, and it flipped, I remember it was just 3 pages. I called my parents and had the most vulnerable conversation. My father was crying talking to me, saying, I have never heard of thinking like this or emoting like this. And I would just really love to learn from you because this is amazing. And my mom said, and because at that point I was always making sure everyone was checking in with their own feelings. And I realized I don't need to do that either. You do it and I'll just keep role modeling it. But I checked in with my mom to make sure she was feeling all right after that heavy conversation. And she said, to be honest, the only emotion she felt was actually a twinge of like jealousy, wishing that she could have a conversation with me like that. And I was like, I want all of the conversations to be like this, open, communicative, right? Like actually saying the things and not doing it to hurt, doing it to heal, right? Like it needs to have air and we need to speak it. Now, did those conversations continue? They have not. But I did have that moment with them. So
wonderful.
Even that was a beautiful, I never would have dreamed of that conversation with my father. So, I mean, we out here creating shit. We just out here doing it. And you're an abundance coach. So, I mean, you should be manifestation, right? I had no idea. I had no idea it was so real. Couldn't even believe it.
To like add on to your story too, as you begin to change and as you have changed, those relationships will also change. And I've talked about this with Walt a ton. I had a tumultuous relationship with my mom and just, she didn't have the capacity and still doesn't to a certain degree to have a conversation like that with me, where we go that deep and where she'll hold space for my feelings. But the way that I have always dealt with it, because I know there's going to be people in your community, especially, that are never going to be able to have that kind of conversation. The way that I teed up that conversation with myself and reflecting about how I feel is really going back to the soul of an individual and like the purity like of heart that I think that we all have. And that what happened in our life together, coming from that heart space, she never would have intentionally inflicted that pain on me. And I can really let that go and forgive and move on. And as soon as I did, we went from being like arch enemies, I'll say, like we just butt heads and get really angry at each other and like blow up, and it just really was toxic. We went from that to best friends. Like my mom is one of my best friends. We didn't have to have a conversation about what I went through. I did it on my own, and then that reverberated out, and she is a completely different person. She doesn't pick on me anymore. We get along really well. I really get to see the sweet part of her that I know was always there, which is beautiful.
That's it. Is like, that's the message, right? Is like, conflict is not good or bad. We have a choice. We can show up to conflict and we can connect through it. Like you just created a beautiful connection with your mom because you didn't skip the conflict. Do you know what I mean? That's even that. So we can connect or we can contend, your choice. But the connection is the self-discovery shit. Like that's the stuff you want to be thriving in relationships with people that you say you love. That's the thing. It's like we just forget, like we love these people. Like we want to share all of ourselves. Totally. What I have had to realize with my parents in this wound that I am literally taking these layers off of is that the difference is I don't need to have conversations like that with them, because what I really need is to learn the truth is my parents not accepting me does not make me unacceptable. I accept me. I'm the one that I've been waiting for. I'm the safe adult that is going to reparent my inner children. I have so many parts in me. So I got it. right? I don't need to be accepted by them. What hurts is that I was believing I should be. And that's always going to be living in a place of loss. If I'm upset about what should have been, is it just? Is it fair? Of course not. I would love it if they could have just, but they didn't. And so that's my reality. But I accept me, and my worth does not depend on my parents giving me a seal of approval anymore. It just doesn't. But it did for 40 years.
I continue to be amazed, and forgive me, Jody Lynn, if you had more to go with there, but I just have to jump in with this. I continue to be amazed by something that I should not be amazed about, which is just how important appreciation and acceptance are.
Oh,
just when I thought I had that figured, I thought I had that figured out. Like, okay, yeah, I've got that. And then you come onto the show and you show me an entire different layer I hadn't even thought of before. My
it's
God,
allowance. You're going to just allow this time. You're going to just allow it. There's no need to emotionally regulate and control. We don't need to do that. Let's just allow it and validate it first before we bring logic in. We'll get there, but we got to validate
it. The thing is, if you do that, you probably don't need to bring the logic in.
Bingo. That's why the voices are quiet, because typically that voice is a part that is doing its insecure strategy job.
Yeah.
That's why the voice is quiet. Thank you.
Logic. I used to be like Mr. Logic. That was me years ago.
Yeah.
I was Logic all the time.
I named that part because that part in me is like very like I process it. I call it the grand processor. So anytime that part comes up to talk, I'm just like, okay, we don't need you. Like, thank you. We see that you used to do this very well, and we thank you for your service in that. But we have different strategies now. So thank you. You can have a seat. Like, just I see it like that, because they all have a different need they want to fuss about.
I might have done better if I'd actually named it. I never thought about naming it.
You should name it. I also named my imposter syndrome, like in anxiety. I call it my risk manager, because they have very good foresight, right?
Sure.
Like, so let's just put it to use, right? So they're my risk manager. So
such official titles. I like that.
That's me though. I just like to see. I really like to connect with myself. So I do see these parts as like I'm picturing going back to little Kyleigh. There's a Kyleigh on the stairs, 16 years old, walking down those stairs of my family home, hearing my family laughing in the kitchen, and something hit me hard. It sat me down on the stairs. It was like a thought. You don't belong here. It sat me down, and I just froze, and I stayed on the stairs listening to my family. I have gone in my mind and sat with that Kyleigh on the stairs. And in EMDR, in therapy, I was like trying to get her to get off the stairs. And it wasn't until I've learned all these other things that I realized it wasn't about getting her off the stairs. She needed someone to sit next to her. I needed proof right then that I did belong. And so me going and sitting with that Kyleigh, I just told you that story 7 months ago. I couldn't tell that without crying.
Wow.
Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, it still happened, and I've honored what happened and what I felt. I'm not pushing anything. I've honored it, and we keep moving. Right? It's just this beautiful way to exist within.
You know, I'm going to go back to it again. I started off the show saying you could just tell this is going to be a high vibe show. I think we actually exceeded what I thought it was going to be.
Ooh, and see, expectations be tripping me up. So I like that I exceeded.
I mean, I was really sure I had the measure of it, and it wasn't that measure. It was up here even more.
That is like my favorite compliment. This is my favorite compliment.
Holy crap. Wow.
Thanks for letting me just chat away, guys. It was nice to
be
able to like introduce myself to you.
Well, I can't wait to finish the last, because we always do these last things at the end of the show. I can't wait to do them because they're going to be so appropriate for this conversation.
Okay.
First thing first. All right, we touched earlier on the summit, the Queer Joy Summit. Reiterate it again. Tell people when it is, where it is, how to find it, all that, and tell people how to find you too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on social media at Kyleigh Attached, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Kyleigh Attached. And then I also have this Queer Joy Summit coming up. And the Queer Joy Summit, it's all virtual. The official days are November 17th to the 19th, but you can register right now for free and you'll get all 20 presentations. There are 20 queer presentations, people talking on their favorite thing plus queer joy. There will be a link in show notes perhaps, and otherwise queerjoysummit.com. And where else? Podcast is coming. I'm just out here having chats with my risk manager, but we're going to get it. Don't worry. We're getting there. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. So lots of things recorded. Lots of things recorded.
Don't keep putting it off, risk manager. This is something that you have to do now. Okay.
Yes. That's what my session was on today. Thank you, sir. We're out here. Literally, guys, I went live on TikTok with this thing on my head. Like, if that's not brave. Right?
That is brave.
That is so funny. I blush through it, but I do it. I like being courageous.
That's all right. That's all right. That's
all right. So what's the final thing? What are we going to do?
Well, there's two more. Second one is Jody Lynn's bit, because as you could tell from the questioning and the commenting that Jody Lynn was doing, she brings a really fabulous perspective that ties everything together. And then at the end of the show, I asked her to literally tie it together.
Oh, good. That's why that makes sense.
Jody Lynn, how are you tying it together today?
Today was a reminder, and not only pure courage and resilience, and that I think we have more of it than we ever thought we could muster. And your story is a prime example of that. And also just bringing this whole thing together. I think the world needed the message of, I accept me, I love me. And when, I'm going to steal your words for this moment, but when we begin to exist that way, it's a beautiful way to exist.
Dang, I said that. That sounds good.
You're better than you thought.
Hey, risk manager, always out here. All right. I like that. Beautiful existence. That is what it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So,
thanks for letting me share that with you.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah. Then the final part, this is something that I started about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. I noticed something with all the guests, because I mean, we have lots of guests come onto the show, lots of different things, lots of different storylines, topics, and so forth. And yet there's one theme to all of them. They've all been through some kind of a trauma. They've been through some kind of dark night of the soul. They learned something along the way, and they want to share it with the world. And so they do podcasts, and they write blog posts, and they go onto social media, and they do all this stuff, and they're sharing all the different ways that they're sharing. And I noticed something that we all know, we all take it for granted. We just don't pay any attention to it, which is we're sharing it with people we don't even know about. And they're benefiting in ways we don't even hear about. Sometimes we do. I mean, it's great when we do. We get the email, we get the text message, we get whatever that tells us, oh, yeah, I connected with this person. But most of it, we have no idea what's going on in the background, and yet it's still happening. And we don't get credit for it.
Yeah.
So I like to say, Kyleigh, on behalf of those people you haven't met, haven't seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you don't even know about,
dude,
on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you are making a difference in this world.
Damn, dude, thank you. Woo, the fact that this came an hour after that session I had with my coach is beautiful. Thank you for saying that. The ripple effect is the exciting part. So yeah, definitely don't need cred, but the ripple effect is legacy shit, man. I want to help people relate better, because it doesn't have to be so scary. And even if it is scary, if you feel safe with someone, we really should have that foundation to do that.
Well, the reason I say that message is I want you to know you already have.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much. And I feel this is actually, if I can end on this, I actually feel it's interesting as I have shared more and more of it. It's interesting how much easier it is to open my mouth about this mission than I found on my actual mission. It took me a month to even say hi to someone on the street in Spanish because I was so scared to say it wrong. Yeah. So to come out here and do live shit like this, and knowing that I always have that fear, is it is such a joy to be able to face fears. I really like it. So I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
Check out 21-year-old missionary Kyleigh.
Oh my goodness. Look at
her.
Wow.
Look at her poor little thing. Went to Argentina. But yeah, so I mean, me and her, 20 years apart.
Yeah.
That's
right.
crazy.
Like that's like, man, life is cool. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Even when your cat knocks the microphone over.
Your dog's
guys looking for all kinds of attention right now. So what are you doing talking to this queer lady? You should be giving me attention right now. What's going on?
No, the cat showed up because I am a lesbian. You know,
oh, okay, that's what
cat ladies.
Okay, that's
part
cool.
of our thing.
No, seriously, Kyleigh, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you guys. This was really great. I appreciate it.
I really loved it. And thank you, Jody Lynn, as usual. I mean, wow.
Thank you.
Was this what you expected? I don't know about you.
No. Not at all. I wouldn't have been able to imagine this. It was good.
This was cool.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.